What is up? Okay. This video I've been contemplating on even doing for the last, it's been months at this point. So I spoke briefly about the issues that I had with various shops. And anyone who talks to me on the phone, which is a constant thing for my work, you'll know that I'm trying my best to be communicative to where I understand your needs and wants and can focus to a car construction and design to get those needs met. As much as I don't want to make this, I'm going to, because the burning of the bridge that I'm doing may have a long-term effect to help you out in not having the same shortcomings that I dealt with, both financially and most importantly, my time. So, recently had problems for the last, 17 months with the Eccentric Motorsport, Indiana, Zach and Clint. So, the fact is that I delivered a block to them. They inspected it a year after the fact it was delivered, which then I, instead of being able to correct it properly, I was now stuck with something that wouldn't be usable for my personal needs. Is it still usable? Yes. Is it still okay? Yes. Is it what I asked for? No. And does it match my needs? Not even close. So, besides the issue that I've had with Eccentric Motorsports, which comes down to communication, wants and needs of a build, right? I'm very clear and concise. My usage is this and this and this. And I know usually exactly what I want. And then I'm leaving it up to the shop to match my wants with their experience. That's why you pay someone who's a specialist. That's why someone pays me for engine calibration, because I ask the questions to where we all drive differently. We all have different landscapes to drive in. We all have these very, I don't want to say boutique, but we have particular reasons that we're into cars, right? To me, I like it because you can come from any walk of life. You can come from any background. And if you perform with hard work, good work ethic, you try to help others, there's nothing wrong with that. That is the quintessential best approach for automotive and automotive design type work. When you move away from that and you're doing this to hunt down numbers on the gram and just pathetic following and shit like that, that's not helping what I think is the reason why we're all in this automotive community. And that reason may differ a little bit, but for the most part, we love to drive cars, right? We want to be on amazing roads. We want to be on a place where we can have our true freedoms. So me as a libertarian, which if that offends any of you, that's you, not me. That's living rent-free in your head right there as far as I'm concerned. But I am all about giving people freedoms to drive the vehicle how they want to. Your rights to bear arms, your rights should never be in question, right? Okay. Now let's take a few steps back, because the reason why I made this video is my irons and housings that I had purchased new from Mazda/Atkins at the time. I think I did kind of split order on that. Arrived to Rotary Science Michael did 9 studs for me, 1/2 inch, semi-P work, and balancing. The rotating assembly came with the rear counterweight bent so bad that, like, I'd never seen it before, nearly that bad, and it didn't ever touch my hands, right? So Eccentric, when they evaluated it a year later, showed me these pictures, and I'm like, yo, this shit's fucked. It's so far out from being a true rear counterbalance weight, like someone had pried on it at a extreme amount, that it was unusable. You know, if you're trying to run 10,000 RPM, that thing just freaking, your clutch is now, it wouldn't work, right? So, thank you. As many issues as I had with Eccentric, they drew the line. They said, we can't do this. It's a year late for them to evaluate it, but that's when I knew I had to reach out and find a better balancer. Okay, no problem. Got it taken care of. The other thing is semi-P, they're probably fine, but the plastic electronic potting material that's being used for that may not be the best application. It's just a little questionable on temperature rating and durability. I'm assuming a lot of these houses are going to be great for 5 years. Beyond that, I think they would be questionable. That's based on personal tuning for a bunch of semi-PP cars. Like, they're out there, they're doing just fine. For me, in particular, I plan on doing a lot of mileage. So I was hoping for something that would be more long-term, non-sealed O-ring. That was my mistake. I did not realize that was not the functionality of Rotary Science's semi-PP. There are 2 others that I know of that do O-ring, which is Chip and Wilmeranic. All right, so that covers that. You got kind of a negative, kind of a positive, but you're just being informed. All of this is purely informational. I don't want to have any sort of bias. There's no he said, she said bullshit. The biscuit. But the important thing is that you're informed as a rotary enthusiast, as an automotive enthusiast. You need to be informed, and I can go on a whole friggin' 30-minute tangent on how that has affected a lot of my local people here, where their lack of being informed has led to a destruction of engines and, ECUs getting fried and just really, really dumb, what I think is very simple. If you don't understand something, admit that fault and ask for help. That's it. So I'll leave that tangent as it is. Okay, no problem. Number 3 thing on Rotary Science to be wary of is the trueness of the cut for anything that's like a 1/2 inch stud. So the 1/2 inch studs had really, really rounded off kind of shitty threads. Now it's both on the bolt and the iron that's cut into. And since they're not a through bolt that clamps the whole rotor assembly, threads are where you're holding all your weight, or rather your tension. And it is something to consider. That is a weak link. That is another piece that you've now taken out further and slightly gummed up, right? So if you're using the threads to hold tension and the threads are kind of uneven or lightly rounded, they're just less efficient. There's a reason why we have a particular thread pitch shaping, right? Like the wedge and screw effect of a bolt is very particular in its shape to make it as much um, mechanical advantage as possible without weakening the process. So when you have a very odd, like roundish shape to your threads, you're losing a lot of that strength and a loss of surface area of the mating surfaces, which will make it a weaker part. So that was number 3 on rotary science. Between the semi-P that could leak potentially in what I think is under 5 years, the studs themselves, and the rear counterbalance weight that was just completely like never inspected. There was something totally wrong. So number 4 was the rotary balancing itself. Okay, this is a very scary thing to me. We originally ordered up scalloped rotors. Totally fine for low boost, totally fine for NA. The issue is that when Michael did the machining for the scalloping, he scalloped them incredibly heavy to the point where, well, more importantly, they weren't concentric. So side to side to side. So if you draw a rotor and you've got side, 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 right? It was not cut in the same manner as a true center line dropped into that rotor. So the concentricity, so if you draw a circle inside of a circle, your cut pattern was incorrect to where one side seal would be 1.1 millimeter away from the end of the rotor. One would be 1.4. One would be like just straight 1, right? So everything was shifted, right? So if the rotor is cut in a shifted pattern, and in this case, belt sanded, which was just atrocious. I'll get into that later. You're going to create an inherent balance issue, as well as the fact that when you make material so thin for your scallop there, the side seal clearance can easily end up acting like an apex seal, as a combustion event will work on the side seal and bend out the rotor or close up the rotor to actually pinch the side seal. So that's a huge concern for scallop rotors. They're a little bit famous from Vargas Brothers and their little testing video they did. That is absolutely nothing against them. That is back-to-back dyno results. That's back-to-back testing. Scallops do act like a different port for an engine, right? You're changing the port opening and closing of an engine by scalloping a rotor. Same thing as if you're doing porting on a rotor housing, right? So it's an old drag racing trick, right? Very, very common. Actually, road racing did it too, because you can't open up more parts here, but you can open up more parts here. Oh, okay. So the scalloping was non-concentric, very thin wall. That's like 4 and 5. And then when you look at the actual balance sheet, so per Michael's balance, it was zeroed, right? It was like 0.2 gram or something. So to his balancing, it's fantastic, right? So I can't knock him on that. He put in a good amount of effort. And when we identified the rear counterbalance weight issue and the rotors being cut on a non-centered or non-concentric cut, a year later, mind you, from Eccentric Motorsport, because they did not evaluate something that arrived to their doorstep, which still blows my mind. If you get a package, I don't care who it's from, and you're expecting something, you should inspect that package when it arrives, or at least within a reasonable timeline, just so you know what you're working with. You can evaluate, you can take notes, you can make further decisions based on that, whether it's a home remodel or an engine block or whatever it is, doesn't matter. So, a year after the fact of Eccentric going through and looking at said block, we asked Rotary Science, Michael, I have a feeling this is incorrect for the setup because of these issues, and I listed off the issues. Is it possible that you have another Series 4NA set of rotors and another rotating assembly to balance and send out? Michael was very gracious. He did this. He sent a new set. I know that Zach at Eccentric did a very nice, I think it was like a pine box that he made to make sure it is secured. Because holy crap, shipping damages these days, they do not care, right? So Zach sends out the old assembly in a pine crate. The new assembly arrives missing the pine crate and having a cardboard box with like a few little cardboard rolls in it. And my whole front assembly, which for me, I have a custom supercharger wheel that I machined out with a 60-2 trigger wheel, 6 rib belt, underdrive pulley for some things, overdrive for others, and that was damaged. So I bought a new setup. I'm going to machine it again, do the whole thing again, but the thing was like straight notched, damaged from shipping. And it's so simple when you're shipping these incredibly heavy steel, iron, aluminum parts, whatever you're shipping, just put a little bit of care into it. That's all I can ever ask for. These parts are getting more and more rare, and as they are getting more rare, they are appreciating massively in value. And so when you have a nice set of parts get damaged in shipping, that could have saved an engine, that could have saved a car, that could have saved something to get back on the road. So that personally, that I try to get all these cars back up. I try to tune as many people as I can. I try to make it so everyone is informed on their decisions. That personally hurts me when I see shipping taking stuff out. So the new assembly arrives, shipped, damaged, whatever. But on the rotor face, one of the rotors had like a dent from the side, and that was in no way shipping. Like that was straight up machinist style thing, and that rotor face was clearanced differently. So we had a request for face clearance and a request for side clearance on that rotor set. And we went a little bit more towards drag racing at the time, or something like, we want this to be kind of a little bit more clearance for the tip and for the side clearances, so that if there is any kind of eccentric shaft wobble with high RPM, high load, or whatever it is, we'd have either direction covered. Now, that does lose compression. That does put more side load onto the side seal, which pretty much makes it act like an apex seal, because now your combustion event can happen on the edge, which it shouldn't be happening on. But that was the rotor set number 2. Okay. It came hand sanded. It was like the most, I don't want to say spit in the face, but it was definitely not appropriate for what we had gone through. And now me being almost 14 months into this engine build, I was very frustrated. So I reached out to um, Steve Eckrich, who graciously took it on. I think it was like right before Christmas or something. And we made the executive decision to say, whatever you need, do it to your standard, which is what I've always said. Whatever you need, do it to your standard. I send a motor out to Eccentric. Whatever you need, do it to your standard. That doesn't mean make it sit for 2 years. Okay? There's a completely different issue there. But Steve took everything on. He even replaced a rotor out of his own personal stash. And I didn't even think about that at the time. And it blew my mind, the fact that someone went above and beyond, and remachined everything to be concentric, got rid of all what would have been heavy damages, and made something that is honestly, I think, like a work of art, because he started from such bad components. And so he did the best of his ability, restoring all these parts, balancing it and whatnot. And that assembly came back and he was like, yeah, you're off by 28 grams from before. Holy shit. That's a lot. So, Steve's assembly, once I finally got fed up with Eccentric Motorsports and their delays and their unprofessionalism and there's just too much negative. I don't want to bring that up. This is not about bashing. This is not about bashing Michael at Rotor Design. It's not about bashing Eccentric. It's simply me talking through experiences the last couple of years and how I've moved forward with that. I want someone who is purchasing a rotary car or any sort of engine for yourself, right? So you need to be asking the right questions of what your needs and your wants are, and getting those matched, and then being reasonable as well. So you can't say you have a $5 budget and you want to do 1,000 horsepower. It's just not going to happen, right? So this is not about bashing. It's just me trying to be open and showing the process, because that is very important. You know, this whole bullshit with what's changed in the world, it's affected a lot of people differently. And, the person right next to you might have like a mental breakdown when they get home. You don't even know that. There could be all sorts of things going on, and it's only getting worse, especially since we've had this fucking idiot at the helm with their goons trying to ruin the U.S. But beyond that, I was getting to a point of, once I had left Eccentric Motorsports, and I said, I'm done waiting for you. I'm done dealing with your bickering. I'm done with your junk parts comment when everything is brand new. And everything that wasn't brand new was edited or changed by me or by someone else for their standards, which is how it's supposed to be, right? Even if they had started with all brand new parts, let's say they ordered it themselves, used their machinist, whatever it was, it still wouldn't have been evaluated for over a year. So it doesn't make any sense as to the delays. That's what gets me, is the bickering, the delays, that stuff. So once that's done, and I pick up the motor, Me personally, I did not. But I'm very thankful to have an engine builder who is willing to drive a full day, pick up my stuff, inspect it there, because he actually gives a shit, drives back, takes notes of what needs to be done on that drive back, and he's like, oh, well, here's what we need to change, here's what needs to be fixed, and here's what we should say is like drag racing only. So this rotating assembly went to a buddy of mine who's a drag racer. It's probably the perfect assembly for him. Shaves off, I think it was 4,200 grams per rotor total weight, balanced by Steve, and has REW, beefier bearing, all that stuff's gone. He's going to love it. I took a huge loss in that ordeal. I mean, even just what I traded Steve for the work is like, I took a huge loss. Anyways, Lee, I hope you love that. I can't wait to come out there and tune it with you. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But so John and I evaluated our new setup. Our new setup was about how are we going to approach this to match John's perspective. I think he's brilliant. I think he may be, when it comes to the way that someone understands ports of an engine, he may be leaving everyone in the dust. I can believe it when I've seen two of his engines and I was like, what in the world is up with this port? Like, barely sprinkle anything on it and it just wakes up. And it needs so much fuel because it has so much airflow. How in the world did that happen from the same engine that I'm used to, that I tune every day? So John has taken over the project. He's gone through and we evaluated what needed to happen since the issues with rotary science and the issues with eccentric motorsport. And it's looking good. I think all the bad luck that I had in the past, all the turmoil and whatnot, I just bought my way out of it. I worked harder. I'm a capitalist, libertarian, right? This is my bread and butter. I can work every single day, 8+ hours a day, and I don't get tired. I'm perpetually like this. This is who I am, okay? So when it came down to it, I bought a new block, all from Mazda. I got it shipped over. I got a different machinist to do all the machining work. I gave that machinist an exact request of what John and I requested, which is a different 9.5-inch stud block, because I wanted those studs to be moved in a different location. So I highlighted a picture. I said, I want these 9 studs, and I highlighted every stud on a picture, on a profile. I said, besides that, whatever mods you have according to oiling or overall durability of an engine, do it. Cost is no issue. I talked to John. I said, John, if this was your motor and you had this most exotic shit possible, it's like this. We're aiming for Ferrari territory. Maserati up in this bitch. I said, John, what rotors would you run? And he looks and he's like, I've got some GS LSE rotors sitting on my shelf, mint condition. Dropping the ultrasonic, sent them out to Steve. So that's what we did. So now we've got a little heavier setup. 3mm apex seals, stronger side seal, stronger corner seal. Pretty much going to max out the G42 1200 compact for my car. And there is not a single thing that could stop us from that. Nothing. I have all the fueling in the world. I have all the Mtron computing power in the world. There's a T56 Magnum sitting behind it, like a twin disc clutch rated for 850 foot-pounds of torque, but yet should feel like factory because it's a full face multi-disc. The rear end, so I've got a Mark Williams 3-inch chrome alloy drive shaft coming, which is Sonac's front and rear assembly. Everything's converted to 1350. And I have no problem turning that thing up. We can beat that crap so hard it's not going to care. The car weighs 2,400 pounds. You can run so much power at 2,400 pounds and not break things. It's amazing. So, as always, I'm going to be tire limited. That's fine. I've got traction control. I've got boost by gear. I've got my port actuation for the primaries only. I can set as like turbo speed. I can set as engine temp, secondary injection, duty cycle. I can do it map versus RPM, and all these are conditions to where that can open and close. So it's going to give me even more torque down low if I want it, allowing boost to come in even earlier than normal, because now you're cramming boost down a 45 millimeter hole instead of a 45 millimeter that splits, and then you have 250 millimeter that split. So again, cost is no benefit, or cost is no issue, and there's nothing stopping me. So now that we're 32 minutes into this poor video, it's just it's a nice feeling realizing that I've gone through so much dumb shit, and I said, you know what? Burn bridges, get the work done, put in the work. And for me, I see this whole thing, this whole situation, and it's just a learning experience. Could I have made a lot more money doing other shit? Yes, absolutely. I'm pretty sure doing this work at the capacity that I'm doing it in is absolutely hindering me, right? I love my job. I love what I do. But there are things that I'm also good at that can make me a lot more money. The stock market took a huge shit, right? Lost like 50 grand this year alone from inflation and from the market crashing. And it is what it is. Like, what are you going to do? There's only so much to where you can blame yourself, or to where you can point fingers or any of that bullshit. At the end of the day, you're stuck in that situation until you decide not to be. And your mentality on how to adapt and overcome issues in your future, or in your present rather, really shapes you as a human. It really shapes you, your character, and what you are able to do. So for me, I'm okay saying like, took a loss, because I learned every single time. I learned how people can be two-faced. I learned how, financially my planning is going to be different from now on, right? I'm not going to save everything, because if you're saving everything into a money market or a long-term investment account, that might still take a big shit, just like mine did. A safe long-term investment turned to total shit. So, what you do is you put money under the carpet, you freaking put money under the bed, put money under everywhere. Hide that shit. You're not taxing me. I didn't do that. I lost in a boating accident. What are you talking about? So, it's important to realize what everyone's needs are. It's important to identify your personal growth and your path. And whatever happens with this crazy world we live in, you can let it affect you. You can let it own you. Or you can take it in, understand it, and adapt to it to where you can gain from that said situation. And this has just gone on way too long. I just need to start cutting off heads, guys. That's all it is. So I want to be informative. I want to be open-ended, and I think that it's very important to yeah. Can't post this.